effective, and is often non-traditional, anti-institutional, socially responsible, or disruptive of any existing structures and conventions. Learn more and apply at collectivepowernw.org.
Join Rainier Avenue Radio from 5 to midnight for Sunday evening sound sessions. Jazz from the Cabinets from Big Poppy.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Sergio LaCour's Love Lines.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go to the phone line. Tell him who we talking to.
Sage Prince and Just My Opinion.
This is Sage, and that's just about going to do it for the first half of Just My Opinion.
K-Fox Nightbeat with Nasty Ness Rodriguez.
The beat of the Fox. K-Fox Nightbeat, Nasty Ness.
You know what? You're going to listen from 5 to midnight. Just turn it on and don't stop. DJ Alibaba. The Underground Surround Sound Start Time with Paul Pearson.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Paul Pearson.
Sunday evening sound sessions on Rainier Avenue Radio. Trust me, you'll be listening the entire time from 5 to midnight. Sunday evening, your sound session on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Wash your hands, don't touch your face, wipe things down, clean up your space. When you cough and sneeze, do responsibly. If you feel you're getting ill, isolate at home and chill. No, you're not alone. Please pick up your phone and call 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Community Radio Station will provide you with more information. Say Rainier Avenue Radio. Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at rainieravenue.radio.world.
Hey. Greetings and welcome to Seniors Matter. I'm Brenda Charles Edwards, your host, and we are live every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on rainieravenue.radio.world, your community radio station. You can also listen to us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch TV, Twitter, and of course on the Rainier Avenue Radio app. We feature interviews with people that provide services or have valuable information for seniors, caregivers, and the community. Do you need financial documents notarized? Do you need documents read to you for clarity or completion? Call me, Brenda, at Black Orchid Notary, 206-683-2636. Tell me where, I'll meet you there. My guests today are David Turner, a self-described hospice guy, having been involved in hospice business development and operations since 2008, and Nathan Yemane, licensed clinical social worker and the managing director of Y.B.G Healthcare. They have joined in partnership, and they're trying to be the first African American owned hospice in Washington State, if approved by the Department of Health. Nathan recently participated in a public hearing for state approval. Welcome to the show, David and Nathan. How are you guys?
We're doing well.
Thank you. Doing great. Thanks for having us, Brenda.
Well, it's so good to see you again, Nathan, and it's wonderful to meet you, David. I've heard so much about you. So let's just jump right into it. David, what led you into the hospice field?
I wish I could say that was some great epiphany of my own, but it wasn't. I am frequently asked that question, Brenda. The real truth of the matter is, it chose me. I didn't choose it. Oh. I was involved in a different but somewhat related healthcare business, and I was at a minority health conference here in Detroit, which is where I'm joining you from today. And an older African American gentleman stopped by my booth, and we struck up a conversation about sort of some of the disparities and some of the health providers that were lacking in the Detroit community at the time. And he says to me, have you ever thought about hospice? I didn't know much about it at all. I knew my grandfather had been a hospice patient years ago, but I wasn't involved as the daily caregiver. Long story short, that gentleman said, hey, I used to run a hospice program years ago. There's not a Black-owned hospice here in Detroit, which, if you know anything about the demographics of Detroit, that's pretty hard to believe.
Right.
And he said, I don't have any money or a whole lot of energy because I'm older, but I have know-how.
All right.
uh,
That's important.
Absolutely. And I said, well, I don't have any money, but I do have energy and I know people with money.
All
And
right.
so that's how it started. I got a childhood friend of mine and brought him to the table with this guy, Dr. Andre Lee was his name. And the three of us had lunch at a Black-owned establishment here in Detroit. And that's how it all began.
That's fantastic. So, what was your experience like establishing your first Black-owned hospice?
Very, very challenging to say the least. Unfortunately, my mentors, uh, his wealth of knowledge was good, but it wasn't necessarily current because it had been several years, and the regulations in this industry are changing constantly. And in a lot of ways, Brenda, it was a hidden blessing though, because it forced me to really dig deep and to learn the current regulations. It's a very heavily regulated industry. And so it took probably twice as long and three times as much money as we thought it was going to. But the story had a happy ending, is that we were eventually able to get through the state licensure and get our hospice program certified.
So, did you have to, like in the state of Washington, the Department of Health only issues licenses to 2 facilities a year. Did you have any issues like that?
We didn't, and I'm going to let Nathan chime in later on that. I don't know if it's even as many as 2 a year. I think what they do is evaluate every year if there is a numeric need for a new provider. So some years it may be more than 2, but many years it's none. But here in Michigan, that doesn't exist. We are not a certificate of need state. And so here in Michigan, if you are interested and have the financial and business wherewithal to start a hospice, you can. And I'd add to that, Brenda, because of us not being a certificate of need state, an interesting thing happened shortly after us getting that first hospice license and certified through Medicare. And like I said, spent a whole lot more money and a whole lot more time than we anticipated. A larger healthcare provider approached us and asked if they could acquire our license because they didn't want to go through all the hurdles that we had gone through. So we were actually able to sell that license, recoup our money, put a couple dollars into the coffers of the company, and then start again.
Wow. That's all right. You worked it. Okay.
It worked out. It worked out. Yep.
So how has your hospice agents, how have your hospice agencies impact the Black community and the general community in Detroit? And you have another one too, right?
I do. I actually applied for a certificate of need in the Nashville area. It is similar to Washington, where they do have a limited number of licenses that are made available. And we were approved back at the end of 2020 and started that company last year in 2021. So I have 2 hospice programs currently operating. Nashville is relatively new, so I have a feel for what the impact is going to be. But at this point, it's all speculative. I can tell you in Detroit, we have made a significant impact, not only in the patients and families that are now able to utilize the hospice benefit, but also in hiring several people who look like us, and not just in lower positions, but in senior leadership roles. You know, our director of nursing is an African American female. Our director of social work is African American. So the leaders of our company look like the folks who own and operate the company.
Oh, I love that. I just love that. So with that, about how many patients do you actively have in your Detroit location?
Sure. So everything in our industry is based on something called ADC, average daily census. So it just means on average, about how many people do you typically care for per day? And our average daily census typically hovers between 50 and 55. And of those 50 to 55 patients, typically anywhere between 30 and 35% of them on average are from communities of color. That may not sound like a lot, but I will tell you that the national average is under 10%. So we're more than 3 times the national average.
And also, a lot of facilities, or I'm not sure what to call it, don't tell us about palliative care and hospice. So I think if there was more education, you would have more. And do you go into homes too?
Yeah, we do. We don't have an inpatient facility. So
Oh.
all of our care is provided on site where the patient calls home. So whether it's their private home, an assisted living, a nursing home, sometimes even a hospital, whatever they call home is where we go provide care.
Wonderful, wonderful. Someone asked me that yesterday, and I said, I'm not sure, but I'll ask.
Yeah.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening live to Seniors Matter with your host, Brenda Charles Edwards, on www.rainieravenueradio.world. As I always say, your community radio station. We're here every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Do you know what's the best gift you can give yourself and your loved ones? Join me on Zoom for a group or individual session on end-of-life planning. You can reach me at 206-683-2636. Now back to my guests, David Turner and Nathan Yemane. And Nathan, with your hospice facility in Nashville, I understand it was recently covered by NPR, and many positive things were written about your location. How did that come about?
I think that'll probably be a question that David.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
I'm looking at you, but I'm looking, David. I'm sorry. You're right,
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, that's okay. So Heart and Soul is the brand name of the hospice in Nashville, and that's going to be the name in the Seattle market also. Once we get through the approval process. The writer of the story is actually based in Nashville, and I think he saw a local piece in a Black newspaper that was written about Heart and Soul in Nashville, and it struck a chord. End of life issues, and then all the disparities in healthcare that we already knew they existed a long time ago, but
Right.
COVID really shone a bright light.
Yes.
And so I think it moved him in order to reach out to someone in our office, and that's how it came about. And I'll tell you, it's amazing how that story has resonated. So many different news mediums have picked it up and run with it, and it's been wonderful. I've heard from people all over the country to either say, hey, great, we love the work that you're doing, or I've had several people reach out to me and say, I'm interested in doing something like that in my market. Could we maybe sit down and have a conversation sometime? I'm sure we'll get into later how Nathan and I connected, and I'll let him tell that story. It was just, it was a real blessing that this NPR writer with a heart, and he is a big end-of-life advocate anyway. And when he heard about our work in trying to help even the playing field, and the story just really took off.
Well, it was a wonderful story. It is a wonderful story because it is ongoing. This is such a need. I just can't tell you. I like I say, I get it because I do end of life planning workshops and trying to help people think about what do you want if you can't speak for yourself. Who do you want to speak for you? And simple little things like, do you want to be in pain? Do you want to, because like for me, I don't like pain. Not that anybody does, but I really don't. And at one time I thought, I don't want to feel anything when it comes down to that. But I changed my mind after doing the work and realized that if I'm able to be conscious, I want to be able to see and talk to my loved ones and let them know how much I love them and, to carry on. But if I'm completely out, I'm not going to be able to do that. And we both will be missing something, a valuable opportunity. I had that with my dad when he died 3 years ago. I got to talk to him when he was in the hospital. And then I didn't know that shortly after that he would pass, but we got the air cleared and it was just wonderful for both of us. And I think it made my grieving process a lot easier because we had that conversation.
Wonderful.
But anyway, so Nathan, how did you and David connect?
Before I answer that question, I just want to thank you for sharing the story of, and the information and the story that you just shared about your personal experience with your family. I think a lot of times in my experience in hospice, I started out as a hospice social worker. A lot of times, the families that I worked with, especially Black African American families, patients, they didn't hear stories like what you just told. They had no way of connecting or being able to find common ground with anyone, because a lot of their experiences was negative experiences, bad experiences that they've had within healthcare systems. So I think it's important for you, the platform that you have, Miss Brenda, the ways that you are able to educate, inform the community is really important. And like I said, the story that you just shared helps people become more familiar, more comfortable in doing the same, and in discussing end-of-life care issues and talking about what they would want with their end-of-life care and doing advanced care planning. I just wanted to tell you, sharing stories like what you just did is what helps in educating the public and our community. To answer your question, so as I said earlier, I started out as a hospice social worker. I saw the same disparities that David saw. I saw the same needs. I saw the same concerns as a social worker, going into the families' homes, going into long-term care facilities, and I just didn't know what to do. Just because, as a social worker, there was some things that I could do, but I was limited in that I didn't own the company that I was working for. I couldn't make policy changes. I couldn't change anything from a senior leadership level because I didn't have that position. And so I realized if I wanted to make change in this field, if I wanted to make a difference at end-of-life care, especially for underrepresented and underserved populations, specifically the Black and African American communities in this country, the BIPOC communities in this country, I needed to change my situation. And so I started looking into leaders, African American leaders, BIPOC leaders in hospice. And one of the first things that I saw was a story about my mentor, David Turner, who had started a hospice in Michigan and also in Tennessee. So I reached out to him online and I said, I'm a social worker. I've been in hospice and I want to see some changes. I can't create those changes because of this, the position I'm in, but I'd like to learn how I could be in a position where I am, a part of the governing body or either a CEO, something where I could really make some impactful changes. And from there on, we had a philosophical connection. We both saw the need in the communities that we have, served, him in Detroit. And, I started my hospice journey in Oklahoma City as an employee. And so we were able to, like I said, have that philosophical connection. And from there, we started talking. He taught me a lot of things about how to, establish a hospice. Being from Seattle, I went to high school in Auburn, Washington. I went to college, started at Green River Community College in Auburn. So I'm from here. I wanted to make, some change here. My father passed away. His end of life care was in King County. My mom lived in King County. And so I wanted to be able to make a change here. And he's helped me, and we've collaborated, we've partnered to be in the path and in the road to establishing the first Black-owned hospice in the history of Washington State.
Yes. So what are some of the initial impacts you anticipate having this in Seattle? Or should I say the greater Seattle area, because it's not just Seattle, King County.
Yes, King County. I think we've done a really good job in establishing a lot of grassroots connections. That's how you and I connected.
Mm-hmm.
And then we found out in our conversation that I had connected with Dr. Carrie Anderson, Pastor Carrie Anderson of First AME in Seattle. Grassroots led to that. My connection with him and Dr. Phyllis, his wife, who connected me with the NAACP chapter, the health committee for Seattle King County. And so those are just examples of how we've worked as a grassroots movement to educate the public, the Black community about end-of-life care. And because we've established social relationships, when we are approved, and I'm saying that by faith, that
yes,
we are
I was
approved.
thinking the same thing. When
Yeah.
you are.
When, not if, when.
Well, yeah, when we are approved, we're going to lean on those relationships that we established. No other applicant that has applied can say what we can say about doing grassroots work. We have those relationships that the other applicants really don't have. And so we're going to lean on those relationships to continue to be further embedded in the community, to provide education, to provide the services, and to be of the community, not just go to the community, but to be of the community. And so that's the kind of impact that I see us having.
Well, I was just thinking, I want to mention to my audience about what you just went through for the public hearing for getting approval. I had never really been involved with a public hearing, so I didn't really know what was going on. And even though I wasn't able to attend, I did send comments, and I sent many emails out for people to support this effort. But I want you to tell my audience a little bit about what happened at that public hearing, and then when you will get the answer to when you'll be able to start.
So at the public hearing, that public hearing was held for all 4 applicants. And so, and it was a public hearing that allowed us as an applicant to be able to discuss and talk about our purpose and why we feel that we are needed in King County. Each applicant expressed their thoughts and views as to why they felt like they needed to be a part of the King County hospice landscape. And then after that, the state health department allowed or gave opportunity for members of the community to voice their opinions and thoughts as residents in King County, why they felt that one particular applicant or multiple applicants were met their standards for what should be what qualifies as an adequate hospice. And in that regard, we had significant representation, more representation than any of the other applicants. In fact, we were the only applicants that had residents of King County that spoke on our behalf or in support of us. There was not a resident of King County that spoke on behalf or in support of any of the other applicants. The reason I'm mentioning that is just to emphasize that we have a very grassroots existence, and that we have footprint in this community, that we've worked with this community. And the other applicants just did not have any individual from King County speak on their behalf. And so I think that's key. At that public hearing, they did not have any representation. And so, and in that regard, I felt like the public hearing went very well for us, but because people in the community that we knew, that we had relationships with, were able to talk about how we approached them, the explanation and the reasons why we felt like we need to be in King County. They were made very well aware of that, and they were able to articulate that during the public hearing. And as I said, because we were so well represented at the public hearing, I felt like the public hearing went very well for us.
I'm sure it did. So there is another person that is involved with you gentlemen, and that's your medical director, Dr. Carla Ainsworth. Can you tell me something about her and her role? Whichever one of you want to take it.
I'll just say something quick, David, if you have something to say too. But I'll just tell you this: there's a lot that I could say about her. She's very qualified. Has worked in the Central District for a long time. Dr. Carla Ainsworth, and specifically has worked with individuals 65 and older. So she understands the need and the value of what we're doing, and was very excited to join our cause as our medical director. And I'm going to share.
Oh, are you? David, do you know what he was going to share? You're muted, David. You're muted.
How about now?
How about now? Yes.
How about now? Okay. This is interviews in the year 2022.
Yes.
I'm not sure what he's going to say, but what I will add, I have not had a chance to meet her face to face yet, but we've done several meetings like this over Zoom. And one of the things that inspired her to join our organization is she actually got on the phone and did a call with our medical director in Nashville, who also happens to be an African American guy, medical director. And the two of them talked about things that they see as healthcare practitioners and a lot of the disparities that we've been talking about. And they recognized that this was an opportunity to even expand on what they were already doing with their practices. You talked earlier, Brenda, about how important it is to make education and information a vital component of what you do. And so when you can have someone from the medical community that also looks like the folks from the community that you're seeking to serve, it goes a long way, because at the end of the day, and I'm sure you see this in the work that you do, it comes down to a simple word: trust.
Yes.
Who am I going to trust at this most critical time, either for me as an individual or if I'm the primary caregiver for a loved one?
Mm-hmm.
And I've got to feel confident in the proficiency of that person, and also that they can understand the cultural and religious, and all the different circumstances that surround dealing with end-of-life care. So that's why we are very blessed and fortunate to have had Dr. Carla join our team.
Absolutely. And I was thinking too, one of the things I talk about is you don't need, excuse me, I shouldn't say it. You need more than one person to be your advocate, because if something happens to the main person, you have to have a backup, because I have a relative who had breast cancer, and I was her patient advocate for about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, she's in remission. She's doing
Amen.
great. She's doing great. But I learned so much during that process. And one of the things that was keenly aware was the fact that the patient may not always understand what's being said to them by the doctor. They'll forget because they're going through anxiety.
Absolutely.
So you need to have a patient advocate. I always had a notebook and my pen, and I had developed questions before the meeting and then during. And one day I wasn't able to go, but it wasn't a real serious appointment. And the nurses said, "Well, where's the sergeant?" And so she couldn't make it this time. It's like,
I love it. All right, Sarge.
They knew I wasn't playing,
Right.
I was here to make sure that my cousin got the best care and all the information that she needed to have go through this process. So it just, everybody needs to have one, but also when you're doing end of life planning, you need to designate 3 people.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
I see Nathan's back.
Yeah. I'm going to share the quote that
I think he just wants to keep it a secret and tease us.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe this quote is something so earth-shattering, he's going to make you have to have him back on again.
I know. He's already been on, let's see. He's been on my show twice now, and then I had him on a special show called Community Spotlight. He's got to wait a month.
Yeah, there you go.
Come back in September and tell us what happened.
That's right. What that quote was, right?
Exactly. Well, my time is almost up, but I just want to say that it was a great pleasure to meet you. And hopefully the 3 of us will be able to talk about something later, and maybe I can help in some way with, with what I do. And
no doubt,
I just, the word needs to be out there, and our people need to understand the importance. All people do, but especially people, because they've been denied the information about palliative care and hospice, and we need to get that out there. So
absolutely right.
Nathan, you're going to get it, because you're making us wonder what the secret is. But you'll be back in September when you tell us that you received the license, and then
there you go.
Tell us the secret that you have. But for now,
it's something that she shared at the public hearing. So, but it's a poignant statement, and it captures the philosophy of what we're trying to do. So, but I'll save that. I'll save that the next time we're here.
Say it now. Say it now. That's okay. Say it quick.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll just say.
David, he did it on purpose.
Stop trying, Brenda.
I'm done. I'm done with it.
We're done. Save the quote for September, and we'll be back on to celebrate.
Yes, I love it. You guys, this has been great. I thank you for coming on. I thank my listening audience for being here and supporting me, as you always have. We'll see you next Friday. Right after me is the Coronavirus Special Edition. Take care. Be safe. God bless.
Thank you.